Imagine staring out across the vastness of the Pacific Ocean, mile after mile of endless blue horizon, a body of water so immense it swallows nearly a third of the Earth's surface. Today, the Pacific appears as a boundless void, a scattered chain of islands adrift in an oceanic wilderness. But for countless generations, whispers have echoed across its waves. Whispers of a forgotten land, a lost world that once stretched beneath the waters before vanishing in a cataclysm so great it erased almost every trace. This is not just one story. It is not a myth confined to a single island or a single people. From Polynesia to South America, from the coast of Asia to the heart of the Pacific itself, cultures separated by vast distances speak of lands that once existed, lands that were swallowed by the sea, leaving behind only memory, legend, and mystery. Some call it Lemuria. Others know it as Mu. Still others refer to fragments, Hiva, Ku, or the motherland. Different names, different myths, yet all pointing to the same tantalizing idea, that somewhere beneath the Pacific, the world forgot a continent. Mainstream maps show nothing. Open an atlas today and you'll see islands dotting the ocean. Hawaii, Tonga, Samoa, Tahiti, Easter Island. But between them, nothing but water. And yet, how curious it is that so many peoples living on those scattered islands recall stories of a once great land that bound them together. Was this a coincidence? A metaphor? Or does it conceal a truth our modern science refuses to fully embrace? To begin this journey, we must first acknowledge the strange tension at the heart of human history. On one side, the official narrative, grounded in geology, archaeology, and academic skepticism, which dismisses the notion of sunken continents as fantasy. On the other side, the collective memory of ancient cultures, the myths and chants passed down through generations, which insist something greater once stood where today we see only waves. And therein lies the mystery. Why do civilizations on opposite ends of the Pacific tell stories that resonate with one another? Why do we hear repeated images of floods, of islands breaking apart, of fiery destruction followed by silence and ocean? If these were only isolated myths, perhaps we could explain them away. But their sheer number and global scope suggest something deeper, something rooted in memory. Picture for a moment the world tens of thousands of years ago. Sea levels lower, coastlines wider, and islands more expansive. Imagine chains of islands strung together like stepping stones, connecting what are now distant archipelagos. Imagine people walking or sailing across these lands, building cultures and societies that thrived long before the civilizations of Egypt or Mesopotamia. Then, in an age of rising seas and catastrophic upheavals, the land collapses, the waters advance, and entire homelands are erased. The survivors scatter to Hawaii, to Polynesia, to South America, carrying with them only fragments of memory, encoded in story, song, and ritual. Could it be that this is what happened to the Pacific continent, the world we forgot? Of course, the very phrase, lost continent, stirs skepticism. After all, modern geology tells us continents don't simply vanish. They shift, they break, but they do not disappear without trace. And yet, in recent decades, scientists have begun to uncover evidence that challenges this certainty. Zealandia, for example, is a vast submerged landmass beneath the Pacific near New Zealand. For decades, it was dismissed as fantasy. Today, many geologists acknowledge it as Earth's hidden continent. If Zealandia can exist, then why not Mu? But the Pacific's mystery runs even deeper. Beyond geology, there are artifacts, ruins, and sites that defy explanation. Structures like Nan Madol and Micronesia, megaliths rising from the shallow waters near Yonaguni, and the strange alignments of Easter Island all hint at forgotten builders, as if the scattered islands we see today are the broken peaks of something once far larger. This is where the story begins, at the crossroads of myth and science, where silence from academia collides with whispers from tradition. We are told that history is known, that the timeline of human civilization is neatly arranged, that everything fits into categories of possible and impossible. Yet history, as we know, has a tendency to surprise us. The tale of the lost Pacific continent has endured not because of evidence alone, but because it resonates with something within us, a sense that the world we inhabit is haunted by forgotten chapters. Every wave that crashes upon the shores of Hawaii or Tahiti may be carrying with it a memory, the echo of cities, temples, and lives erased long ago. And so we must ask, what if these stories are not metaphor, but memory? What if beneath the waves lies a land we once called home, a land whose erasure reshaped the course of human history? In this documentary, we will journey through myth, geology, archaeology, and esoteric tradition to unravel this mystery. We will hear the voices of Polynesian navigators, who carried maps of the stars that remember islands no longer visible. We will explore ruins that some claim were left by the survivors of Mu. We will uncover the suppressed histories, the forbidden maps, and the hidden narratives that suggest our world is not as simple as the textbooks claim. This is not a simple story of land and sea. It is a story about memory itself, about how civilizations remember, forget, and sometimes bury truths too vast to fit the accepted narrative. So let us begin, not with answers, but with a question. Beneath the endless expanse of the Pacific, is there more than water? Is there, perhaps, a forgotten continent, erased from our maps, but not from our myths? A world that once was, and could yet return, if only we are willing to listen to the voices that still whisper of Mu. The search for the lost Pacific continent begins now. Every civilization begins with a memory. Some memories are carved into stone, some are written in scrolls, but others, perhaps the most ancient, survive in stories, sung by voices around fires or whispered beneath the stars. In the Pacific, these stories take on a haunting quality. They speak of islands swallowed by the ocean, of ancestors forced to flee, of entire homelands erased beneath the waves. If one were to travel from Polynesia to the Americas, from Hawaii to Easter Island, and then across the Pacific Rim to Japan and Southeast Asia, one would hear fragments of the same refrain. Once, there was a land. Now, there is only sea. Let us begin with the Polynesians, master navigators of the world's largest ocean. Their oral traditions contain references to Hiva, a homeland that vanished beneath the waves. In the Marquesas Islands, Hiva is described not as myth, but as history, a place where the ancestors once lived before the rising waters forced them to scatter. Some chants speak of Hiva being broken into pieces by the wrath of the gods, leaving behind only the fragments we call islands today. Could these fragments be the surviving peaks of a continent once known to their ancestors? Further south, the Maori of New Zealand recall Hawaii, the ancestral homeland across the sea. While many scholars interpret Hawaii as a metaphor for spiritual origins, some elders describe it as a tangible land, swallowed by the ocean in an ancient cataclysm. The migration legends of the Maori do not begin in New Zealand. They begin with a lost land that no longer exists. Across the Pacific in Hawaii, the chants tell of Kanehunamoku, a mystical land beneath the waves, where spirits dwell and where some believe their ancestors once resided. The Hawaiian Komalipo chant, a cosmic genealogy, describes worlds before worlds, lands that rose and fell, oceans that swallowed civilizations. This cyclical vision of destruction and rebirth mirrors the myths of cataclysm found across the globe. Travel farther east, and you encounter the legends of Rapa Nui, Easter Island. Here, oral traditions recall that the first settlers came from a distant land, guided by the great king Hotu Matue. Some versions of the story speak of Hiva once more, suggesting that the same memory echoes across thousands of miles. The giant moai statues, standing as silent sentinels, are sometimes interpreted as guardians of memory, reminders of a land lost to time. But the echoes are not limited to Polynesia. In the Philippines, myths tell of lands drowned by the wrath of the gods, forcing survivors to flee to higher ground. In Japan, stories of the Ryugujo, the dragon palace beneath the sea, recall the idea of an underwater world once accessible to humans. And across the ocean in South America, the myths of the Inca and pre-Inca civilizations speak of lands sinking beneath the sea, of floods that reshaped the world. The Andean concept of Pachacuti, the overturning of the world, reflects the same theme of cyclical destruction, eerily similar to Polynesian myths of drowned homelands. Even Native American traditions along the Pacific coast tell of islands and lands that disappeared beneath the waves. The Haida people of the Pacific Northwest recall a time when the sea rose to swallow villages, leaving only mountaintops above water. What we see here is not one isolated legend, but a chorus of voices spread across thousands of miles, cultures, and centuries. Each speaks of land swallowed by water. Each preserves, in its own way, a memory of disappearance. Skeptics argue that these are simply flood myths, universal stories born from the human fear of water and natural disaster. After all, nearly every culture has a flood story. Yet when we look closer, the details of the Pacific myths align with uncanny precision. They do not merely speak of floods. They speak of homelands, of specific islands, of places once inhabited, remembered, and mourned. The Polynesians did not imagine Hiva as an allegory. They remembered it as a physical place. The Maori did not sing of Hawaii as a metaphor. It was their point of origin. These are not tales of a flood in general, but of a land that was lost. And this is where myth begins to blur into history. Because myths, as many anthropologists admit, are not random fantasies. They are memory encoded in story, polished by repetition, shaped into allegory, but rooted in something real. Myths are the way ancient peoples recorded history before writing, a way of ensuring that the great cataclysms of the past would not be forgotten. Imagine for a moment being a child in one of these ancient island cultures. You sit by the fire as elders chant the story of Hiva, of the land your people once knew. You hear of the waves that came, of the mountains that split, of the skies darkened with fire. You hear of the voyages that followed, when your ancestors spread out into the endless ocean. That story stays with you. It stays with your children. And so it passes down for centuries, until one day, long after the event itself, scholars dismiss it as just myth. But what if it isn't just myth? What if these stories are fragments of memory of a cataclysm so vast it shattered an entire continent? As we step deeper into this mystery, the Pacific myths become our first guide. They tell us to look beneath the waves, to listen to the voices of the past. For in those voices, scattered across the ocean, lies the haunting suggestion that the Pacific we know today was once very different. A land once stretched across these waters. Its people sailed, built, remembered, and when the land was gone, the people carried its memory with them. That memory is still with us, in chants, in songs, in the quiet echoes of myths that refuse to die. Perhaps the greatest evidence for the lost continent of Mu is not stone or map, but the simple persistence of human memory, thousands of years old, yet still alive, still whispering, still reminding us of the vanishing world beneath the waves. For countless generations, Pacific Islanders kept their memories of vanished homelands alive through song, chant, and oral tradition. But in the Western world, the idea of a lost continent beneath the Pacific would not emerge until the 19th century, a time when science, exploration, and mysticism often walked hand in hand. It was an age when the Earth still held secrets, when vast regions of the ocean remained unmapped, and when the very nature of humanity's origins was hotly debated. It was in this climate that a curious name first entered the conversation: Lemuria. The story begins not with mystics or explorers, but with a zoologist. In the mid-1800s, British scientist Philip Lutley Sclater was studying lemurs, small primates found in Madagascar and parts of India. He noticed something strange. Fossils of lemurs appeared in regions separated by vast oceans. How? He wondered. Could these animals have spread across such distances? At the time, the theory of continental drift did not exist. So Sclater proposed a bold idea. Perhaps there had once been a land bridge or continent connecting Madagascar, India, and Southeast Asia, a continent he called Lemuria, after the lemur. Though his theory was scientific in origin, it had unintended consequences. The name, Lemuria, soon escaped the confines of zoology and entered the imagination of mystics, writers, and visionaries. If such a land once existed, might it have been home to an ancient people, a forgotten civilization erased by time? By the late 19th century, Theosophy, a spiritual movement founded by Helena Blavatsky, seized upon the idea of Lemuria and transformed it into something far larger. Blavatsky described Lemuria as a cradle of humanity, the home of one of the Earth's earliest root races. In her vision, Lemurians were not primitive, but spiritually advanced beings, tall and long-lived, who possessed abilities lost to modern humans. For theosophists, Lemuria was not merely a scientific hypothesis. It was a spiritual Atlantis, a vanished paradise whose echoes still resonated in myth. But it was not just Lemuria that captured Western imagination. In the early 20th century, another figure would take the legend even further. His name was James Churchward, a British Army officer turned mystic who claimed to have uncovered ancient tablets in India. These tablets, he said, described a vast lost continent in the Pacific Ocean, a continent known as Mu. According to Churchward, Mu was not just a large island, but a sprawling continent covering millions of square miles. It was the true motherland of civilization, older than Egypt, older than Mesopotamia, perhaps older than humanity as we know it. Mu's people, he claimed, were spiritually and technologically advanced, living in harmony with cosmic laws before a great cataclysm shattered their world and sank the continent beneath the Pacific. Churchward's books, beginning with The Lost Continent of Mu in 1926, captured the public imagination. Though scholars dismissed him as a fantasist, his vision of Mu resonated deeply with readers hungry for mystery, for an origin story that challenged the rigid frameworks of conventional history. And perhaps that is the key to why Mu and Lemuria took hold in the Western mind. They arrived at a moment when the old biblical narrative of creation was being eroded by Darwinian evolution, when scientific materialism seemed to strip the world of wonder, and when Western audiences longed for deeper, mystical truths. Lost Continents offered a bridge between science and myth, a way to reconcile the discoveries of geology and paleontology with the enduring allure of forgotten golden ages. In this way, Lemuria and Mu became more than geographical theories. They became cultural symbols, metaphors for the lost knowledge of humanity, for the civilizations erased from history, for the mysteries lurking just beyond the horizon. And the Pacific Ocean, vast and empty, was the perfect stage. Unlike the Atlantic, dotted with continents and familiar coastlines, the Pacific stretched across half the globe, seemingly swallowing everything in its immensity. If a land had vanished anywhere, surely it could vanish here. Of course, mainstream scientists pushed back. As plate tectonics gained acceptance in the mid-20th century, the idea of sunken continents was rejected. Land masses could break and drift, yes, but they could not simply vanish beneath the sea. Lemuria was declared obsolete, a relic of pre-tectonic speculation. Mu was ridiculed as pseudoscience, the invention of an imaginative soldier chasing myths. And yet, the names never disappeared. They lingered in esoteric circles, in New Age teachings, in speculative archaeology. Lemuria and Mu became shorthand for all that was forgotten, suppressed, or denied in human history. Even today, if you walk into a metaphysical bookstore or attend a New Age gathering, you will hear people speak of Lemurian crystals, of Mu's spiritual legacy, of starborn ancestors from a vanished Pacific homeland. The mainstream may have discarded these ideas, but in the alternative imagination, they remain alive and powerful. The irony is that modern science, while rejecting Mu, has quietly revealed its own versions of lost continents. In recent decades, geologists have confirmed the existence of Zealandia, a massive submerged landmass beneath New Zealand. Though not Mu, it proves that continents can indeed sink beneath the waves, remaining hidden for millions of years. Suddenly, the idea that the Pacific once held a great land no longer seems so far-fetched. Thus, the Western invention of Lemuria and Mu created a paradox. On one hand, they are dismissed as pseudo-history. On the other, they open the door for people to imagine lost civilizations, to look beyond the official narrative, and to question what may lie beneath the Pacific. The myths of the Pacific peoples gave the world a story of drowned homelands. The West, through Lemuria and Mu, gave those stories a name, a shape, and a place on the map. And while the names may have originated from mistakes or inventions, the idea they represent has proven indestructible. Because perhaps, deep down, we sense that the Earth's history is vaster than we have been told. Perhaps we sense that beneath the Pacific waves lies more than silence. And perhaps we cling to Lemuria and Mu because they remind us that sometimes the line between myth and memory is thinner than we think. To understand how a continent could vanish beneath the Pacific, we must step into the realm of cataclysm, into a world of fire, water, and upheaval. For if Mu or Lemuria ever existed, something of unimaginable force must have torn it apart. The Pacific is no ordinary ocean. It is encircled by what geologists call the Ring of Fire, a vast horseshoe of volcanic mountains and deep trenches stretching from South America, up through North America, across to Japan, the Philippines, and down to New Zealand. Here, the Earth's crust is restless. Earthquakes rattle the ocean floor. Volcanoes spew fire from beneath the waves. Whole islands appear, then vanish, within the span of a human lifetime. Modern science explains this through the theory of plate tectonics. Beneath the ocean floor, massive plates of rock slide, collide, and grind against each other. Where they meet, land is created and destroyed. The Pacific Plate, in particular, is constantly moving, subducting beneath other plates and reshaping the ocean. But long before the language of geology, ancient peoples told their own stories of upheaval. Across Polynesia, myths speak of fiery gods tearing the land apart, of oceans boiling, of mountains collapsing into the sea. The Maori spoke of volcanic gods reshaping the land in fits of rage. Hawaiian chants recall Pele, the goddess of fire, whose eruptions swallowed forests and villages alike. These myths, rich in symbolism, may also be fragments of memory, memories of catastrophic events that reshaped the Pacific landscape. Even in the West, cataclysm has haunted our imagination. The biblical flood, the destruction of Atlantis, the fire and ash of Vesuvius, all are reminders that civilizations can vanish in an instant. When James Churchward described the fall of Mu, he spoke of fire and water, earthquakes that shook the land, volcanic eruptions that blotted out the sky, and great waves that swept across the world. To Churchward, Mu's destruction was not a slow erosion but a sudden, apocalyptic event. But could such a thing truly happen? Geologists remind us that entire land masses cannot simply sink overnight. Yet they also admit that cataclysm is woven into the Earth's history. About 74,000 years ago, the eruption of Mount Toba in Indonesia nearly wiped out humanity, blanketing the planet in ash. In 1883, Krakatoa exploded with such fury that its sound was heard 3,000 miles away. Much of the island disappeared, swallowed by the sea. More recently, in 2022, the eruption of Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai sent shockwaves around the world, literally reshaping the seafloor in hours. If such destruction can occur on a small scale, why not on a grand one? Imagine not a single volcano, but dozens erupting in a chain reaction across the Ring of Fire. Imagine massive earthquakes splitting the earth, followed by tsunamis towering higher than skyscrapers. Imagine an entire landmass fractured, drowned, and erased. For survivors scattered to the edges of the Pacific, such an event would not just be history. It would be myth, encoded forever in memory. And here lies the tension. The official narrative tells us such a continent cannot simply vanish. Yet the Earth's record shows entire regions swallowed by the ocean. Consider Doggerland, a once-inhabited land in the North Sea, now submerged beneath waves. Consider Zealandia, the hidden continent beneath New Zealand, 94% of which lies underwater. Consider the sunken remains of ancient cities found off the coasts of India, Japan, and the Mediterranean. Everywhere we look, the Earth reminds us, land can disappear. Civilizations can be drowned. The ocean does not preserve, it erases. Skeptics argue that Mu or Lemuria are fantasies, born of 19th century speculation and spiritual longing. Yet their dismissal often ignores the raw truth of our planet's violence. The Earth has ended worlds before. Why could it not have ended another? Even the Pacific itself offers clues. The ocean floor is littered with seamounts, submerged mountains that may once have stood as islands above the waves. Some are volcanic, others remnants of plate shifts. Many are unexplored, their secrets hidden beneath miles of water. What stories might they tell if we could walk their peaks? And then there are the tsunamis. In 2011, the world watched as a tsunami devastated Japan, triggered by a massive undersea quake. Yet this was but a shadow of ancient waves that once struck the Pacific. Geological records show that megatsunamis, waves hundreds of feet high, have occurred in the past, capable of wiping entire islands from existence. Survivors of such waves would tell stories of gods splitting the earth, of the ocean rising to swallow the land. Over centuries, those stories would harden into myth. It is here, at the crossroads of science and story, that we glimpse the possibility of a great Pacific cataclysm, a world torn apart by fire and water, leaving only fragments behind. For the modern skeptic, it is geology. For the ancient witness, it was apocalypse. And yet, one question remains. If such a catastrophe destroyed Mu or Lemuria, what did it leave behind? Ruins? Survivors? Memories encoded in song and stone? The next chapters of our journey will lead us into the navigational memory of Polynesians, into the ruins of submerged cities, and into the whispered legacies of civilizations erased by the sea. But before we go there, pause for a moment. Stand on the shores of Hawaii, Tahiti, or Rapa Nui. Look out across the horizon. Beneath those endless waves lies the Ring of Fire, the most violent geological system on Earth. Is it so hard to imagine that once, not so long ago, it tore a continent to pieces? The Pacific is not empty. It remembers. Its waves are whispers of cataclysm, its silence a monument to a vanished world. And perhaps, if we listen closely, it will tell us what truly happened to the land the world forgot. Long before compasses or GPS, long before the first European explorers dared the vast Pacific, there were the Polynesians, extraordinary navigators who traversed thousands of miles of open ocean using only the stars, the winds, the currents, and memory. To outsiders, their voyages might seem miraculous. To the Polynesians themselves, it was science, art, and tradition passed down through generations. And yet, embedded within these navigational skills is something far stranger, a memory of lands that no longer exist. 5. 1. The ocean as a map. Polynesian navigators, or wayfinders, treated the ocean not as an empty expanse, but as a living map. Every wave, every current, every cloud formation contained information. Every star acted as a guidepost. By reading the subtle signs of nature, they could sail thousands of miles with astonishing accuracy, moving from island to island across a region that covers nearly 1/3 of the planet's surface. This is where the lost continent emerges, hidden in plain sight. Wayfinders often spoke of islands that no longer appear on modern charts. Their knowledge was not limited to what they could see. It extended to what their ancestors had seen long before the islands were submerged or eroded. Could these ghost islands be remnants of Mu or Lemuria? 5. 2. Oral memory as navigation. The Polynesians encoded knowledge in chants, songs, and genealogies. Each chant contained directions, star alignments, and distances between islands. These were not arbitrary stories. They were precise, functional maps. A navigator could memorize dozens of such chants and use them to sail hundreds of miles with no instruments. But among these directions, there are anomalies. Certain chants describe islands positioned where modern maps show only open water. Some even hint at vast continents once linking the scattered archipelagos. Scholars dismiss these as exaggerations or poetic license. But what if they are echoes of memory, a recollection of land long vanished beneath the waves? 5. 3-star maps and the memory of lost lands. Here lies the most fascinating clue: Polynesian star maps. Unlike Western astronomy, which often maps stars on flat charts, Polynesians used the stars as a three-dimensional coordinate system. Each star rising or setting on the horizon marked a direction. Constellations indicated the approach to particular islands. Certain stars were remembered not just for navigation, but for marking territories that no longer exist. For example, in the Hawaiian system, the rising of certain stars indicated the location of islands far beyond current knowledge. The Maori recorded stars that correspond to land east of New Zealand, land that has vanished under the Pacific, leaving only memory. Anthropologists note that these star maps are highly consistent across generations, suggesting the knowledge was preserved over hundreds, even thousands of years. It is tempting to dismiss this as folklore. Yet the precision of Polynesian navigation is undeniable. These were not casual observations. They were deliberate, highly trained, and systematically memorized. To encode the location of non-existent islands into a functional navigational system suggests two possibilities. Either the islands once existed, or the Polynesians possessed knowledge lost to modern science. 5. For voyages of memory, when the first European explorers arrived in the Pacific, they were astonished by Polynesian skill. Captain Cook himself marveled at their ability to sail without instruments. Some navigators could chart hundreds of miles across open water using only stars, waves, and currents. In some chance, Cook discovered hints of islands he never saw, and islands that, according to modern charts, no longer exist. Could these be the remnants of Mu? Perhaps the Polynesians remembered the peaks of a sunken continent or islands that once connected the Pacific in ways we can no longer trace. Their memory, encoded in star maps, chants, and careful observation, may preserve what science has yet to explain. 5. Five-star maps as evidence. Modern researchers are beginning to take these oral and celestial records seriously. By reconstructing Polynesian star charts and comparing them to rising and setting positions over thousands of years, some scholars suggest these navigators were tracking islands and coastlines that have since disappeared. While controversial, these studies reveal a startling possibility. The Pacific Ocean is not empty. It is a repository of lost lands remembered in the stars. And this is the critical insight. When myths, cataclysms, and legends fail to give us a map, the Polynesian stars may provide one. Their navigation preserved memory in a living system, a map written in motion, time, and observation. A map that points toward a continent the world forgot. The evidence is subtle, almost imperceptible, but consistent. The Pacific remembers. Its navigators, using nothing but memory and stars, preserved knowledge of lands long gone. Perhaps these lands were Mu. Perhaps they were Lemuria. Perhaps they were something even older, a prehistoric world erased by fire, water, and time. The ocean may appear vast and empty, but through the eyes of Polynesian navigators, it is a memory bank, a cosmic map of islands, continents, and civilizations erased from our history books. And it is here, among the stars and currents, that we find a thread connecting myth, science, and memory, a thread that will guide us as we explore the ruins and spiritual legacies of the lost Pacific continent. As we leave the stars and waves behind, our journey takes us underwater, into the shadowed, forgotten depths where the ocean keeps its secrets. For beneath the calm blue surface of the Pacific, there may be remnants of civilizations that no longer walk the earth. Structures that hint at a human presence older, larger, and more sophisticated than mainstream history acknowledges. One of the most controversial sites is Yonaguni, off the southern coast of Japan. Discovered in 1987 by a Japanese diver, this underwater formation appears to be a series of terraces, staircases, and platforms cut from solid rock. To some, it is a natural formation shaped by tides and earthquakes. To others, it is unmistakably artificial, a megalithic city lost to time. Its sharp angles, flat plains, and precise lines suggest knowledge of construction far beyond what was expected of the region's ancient peoples. Some theorists even speculate it could be a fragment of Mu or Lemuria, preserved beneath the ocean for thousands of years. Further south, in Micronesia, lies Nan Madol, a city built upon a network of artificial islets. Rising from the waters of Pohnpei, this city is constructed with massive basalt stones, some weighing hundreds of tons. The complexity of its canals and structures defies easy explanation. How did people move such enormous stones? How did they engineer the city with such precision? For those searching for traces of a lost Pacific continent, Nan Madol is tantalizing, a clue that a sophisticated civilization once thrived across the ocean, now reduced to ruins. Even Easter Island offers mysteries that hint at forgotten lands. The iconic Moai statues, carved from volcanic rock, tower over the island, their eyes seemingly watching the horizon. Scholars debate how the islanders transported these massive statues, some weighing over 80 tons, across uneven terrain. Some suggest the statues were reminders of ancestral lands, guardians of memory for people who may have once traveled from a sunken continent. Others propose a symbolic connection, that the Moai themselves are echoes of the lost culture of Mu or Lemuria. Across the Pacific, other submerged sites have emerged. Satellite imagery and sonar mapping reveal underwater terraces, walls, and pyramidal structures off the coasts of Taiwan, Indonesia, and even Fiji. While mainstream science often labels these features as natural, the patterns are striking, repeated, geometric, and sometimes aligned with celestial bodies. Could these be the remnants of islands and cities swallowed by rising seas after a cataclysm? The Motu Islands of Polynesia provide another hint. Small islets rise barely above the waves, but underwater surveys reveal much larger landmasses beneath. Coral growth and sediment layers suggest these were once above water. Could they be the surviving peaks of Mu, the mountains and plateaus that resisted the ocean's relentless advance? Even the Americas whisper their own submerged tales. Off the coast of Ecuador and Peru, sonar has detected platforms and stone structures beneath the sea, sometimes aligned with ancient astronomical events. Could the Pacific have connected cultures across the ocean, linking the Americas with islands that no longer exist? Some theorists believe these submerged cities and megaliths are the scattered remnants of a once unified continent, erased by fire, water, and time. And yet, there is another, more subtle form of evidence: the legends themselves. Across the Pacific, oral histories recall cities under the sea. In Hawaii, the goddess Pele is said to have destroyed lands with fire and lava, swallowing them into the ocean. In Fiji and Samoa, stories speak of entire villages sinking beneath the waves during cataclysms. Perhaps these myths preserve memory of real events, encoded over centuries. When physical structures are gone, memory remains, whispered in stories, songs, and chants. The combination of physical ruins and cultural memory forms a compelling argument. Across thousands of miles, across centuries and oceans, patterns emerge. Massive stone constructions, artificial islets, underwater terraces, and mythic accounts of submerged lands. Taken together, they suggest that the Pacific Ocean may be littered with the remnants of civilizations erased by catastrophe, fragments of Mu, fragments of Lemuria, fragments of a world the modern maps have forgotten. Of course, skepticism is warranted. Many archaeologists insist these ruins are either natural or explainable within the known technological capabilities of local cultures. But even if partially natural, the alignment, scale, and consistency of these sites with oral traditions demand closer examination. Perhaps mainstream science has only scratched the surface, only glimpsed the top of a sunken iceberg of human history. The Pacific, in its vastness, hides more than just water. Beneath its waves, a mosaic of memory waits. Terraces cut from stone, islands submerged by cataclysm, monuments to civilizations that reached heights we can barely imagine. Every sonar scan, every diver's discovery, every ancient chant hints at a continent the world forgot, a lost chapter in human history waiting to be read. And it is here, amid these sunken ruins and megaliths, that we begin to understand the scope of what might have been lost. Mu and Lemuria are not just myths. They may be fragments of a tangible reality, preserved in stone and memory, scattered across the deepest reaches of the Pacific. The ocean may seem tranquil on the surface, but beneath it lies history, a history of rise and fall, of cataclysm and survival, of human ingenuity erased by time. The question remains, can we reconstruct this lost world from what survives above and below the waves? In the next section, we turn from stone to spirit, exploring the Lemurian spiritual legacy, the intangible, mystical knowledge that survived long after the land itself disappeared. While the ocean preserves ruins and memory in stone, the legacy of Mu or Lemuria endures in a different, more mysterious form: spiritual memory. According to esoteric traditions, the people of the lost continent were not merely builders of cities. They were custodians of knowledge, keepers of sacred wisdom, and masters of a spiritual science that modern humanity has almost entirely forgotten. The first whispers of this spiritual tradition entered Western thought through theosophy, a mystical movement founded in the late 19th century by Helena Blavatsky. Blavatsky wrote of Lemuria as a place inhabited by a root race of humans who lived in harmony with cosmic laws. These beings were not merely primitive ancestors. They were tall, ethereal, and possessed mental abilities that seem fantastical by today's standards. They could communicate without speech, harness energy from nature, and live in profound harmony with the earth. James Churchward, who popularized the concept of Mu in the early 20th century, expanded on this spiritual vision. According to Churchward, the Muans, as he called them, were advanced both technologically and spiritually. Their cities were powered by energy sources lost to us today, and their understanding of the cosmos allowed them to align their civilization with celestial patterns. Every temple, every stone, and every city was a reflection of cosmic law, a tangible expression of spiritual principles. But why does this matter? Because if Lemuria or Mu truly existed, its destruction did not erase the culture entirely. Spiritual knowledge, unlike cities, does not sink with the land. It survives in myth, ritual, and memory. Polynesian chants, Maori stories, and Hawaiian Komalipo genealogies may encode fragments of Lemurian understanding, knowledge of astronomy, cycles of nature, and human potential. Consider the emphasis on balance and harmony in Polynesian culture. Navigation, agriculture, social order, and religious practice were all deeply intertwined with environmental awareness and celestial observation. Could these practices be echoes of Lemurian spiritual wisdom? If so, the lost continent was not merely a geographical phenomenon. It was a school of consciousness, a civilization that aligned human life with the rhythms of the cosmos. Many esoteric writers argue that Lemuria's spiritual legacy persists even in New Age movements. Concepts like crystal healing, energy grids, and meditative practices often reference Lemurian knowledge. Some claim that Lemurian crystals, found in remote locations, contain encoded memories of the lost continent, a kind of spiritual archive waiting for humanity to rediscover it. Whether metaphorical or literal, these ideas suggest that Lemuria's influence did not vanish with its physical landmass. It migrated into the intangible, into memory, ritual, and myth. Even mainstream anthropology hints at this persistence. The Polynesians' ability to navigate thousands of miles across open ocean without instruments is not just technical. It is intuitive, almost psychic in its precision. Their observational skills, passed down through oral tradition, suggest a culture deeply attuned to natural and celestial patterns. Could this be a survival of the Lemurian approach to knowledge, the integration of science, observation, and spiritual awareness? Religions and philosophies of the Pacific, too, carry echoes of a Lemurian worldview. Many center around cycles of destruction and renewal, reverence for ancestors, and alignment with celestial rhythms. The rise and fall of islands, the eruption of volcanoes, and the tides themselves are often viewed as expressions of cosmic order. This holistic perception of life resonates with what Churchward and other esoteric writers describe as the spiritual sophistication of Mu. Moreover, the Lemurian spiritual legacy extends beyond ritual and philosophy. It is said to encompass knowledge of consciousness itself. Some accounts suggest that the Muans had techniques for expanding awareness, connecting with nature, and even perceiving other realms, abilities that modern humans might recognize as meditation, lucid dreaming, or heightened intuition. If these claims hold even a kernel of truth, Lemuria was a civilization that prioritized the development of human consciousness as much as the construction of cities. And yet, there is a profound irony. The very qualities that made Lemuria remarkable, its spiritual sophistication, its understanding of natural law, its alignment with the cosmos, may also have contributed to its erasure. A civilization attuned to forces we barely understand could easily be misinterpreted, dismissed, or lost to cataclysm. Its lessons survive, but in fragmented form, hidden in chants, ruins, and subtle cultural practices. Today, researchers, spiritual seekers, and historians continue to trace these fragments. They study astronomical alignments, investigate underwater ruins, and decipher oral traditions in search of clues. Each discovery is a reminder that the lost continent of Mu was not merely a geographical location, but a repository of knowledge, a civilization whose spiritual legacy might hold insights into human potential. In a sense, Lemuria's true survival lies not in land or stone, but in memory and consciousness. Every chant sung across the Pacific, every ritual performed under the stars, is a living thread connecting us to a world the waters have swallowed. The spiritual legacy of Lemuria endures because knowledge, unlike land, cannot be entirely destroyed. As we move forward in our journey, we will see that the spiritual and the material are intertwined. The lost continent leaves traces in ruins and submerged cities, yes, but it also survives in ritual, astronomy, and consciousness itself. The threads of Lemuria's wisdom weave through Polynesian navigation, megalithic construction, and oral memory, offering tantalizing hints of a civilization both vanished and immortal. In the next section, we will explore another layer of the mystery, the suppression of forgotten maps, the hidden cartographic evidence that hints at Mu and Lemuria, and the tension between what history records and what is remembered. Maps are more than tools for navigation. They are windows into how civilizations perceive the world, reflections of knowledge, power, and memory. And sometimes, they reveal what history has tried to forget. In the case of Mu and Lemuria, a peculiar pattern emerges. Maps that hint at lands no longer recognized by modern cartography, maps that vanish or are ignored, and maps that raise uncomfortable questions about the past. Consider the Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral and cartographer. While it is famous for depicting parts of South America with remarkable accuracy, it also shows coastlines that seem impossible to reconcile with conventional knowledge of the era. Some researchers argue that certain features suggest knowledge of lands long submerged, remnants of continents that were known to ancient navigators but lost to history. Could these mysterious coastlines be fragments of Mu or Lemuria remembered and transmitted across generations? Other maps raise equally tantalizing questions. Orent's Finesse 16th-century map depicts vast islands in the Pacific Ocean that do not exist today. European cartographers often drew from explorers' reports, oral traditions, and older sources, sometimes including legends of lands told by Polynesians and other Pacific peoples. Yet as exploration advanced, these islands vanished from maps. Some historians suggest this was simply correction. Others propose suppression, a deliberate removal of inconvenient knowledge. Why would maps be suppressed? Knowledge is power. For centuries, access to accurate geographic information could determine trade routes, colonial conquest, and the flow of empires. A map showing a lost continent with rich resources, advanced civilizations, or navigational secrets could disrupt political and economic hierarchies. By removing these lands from official maps, authorities ensured that certain knowledge remained hidden, limited to secretive circles or oral tradition. Even into the modern era, anomalies persist. Maps from the 18th and 19th centuries sometimes depict islands or chains that have since disappeared. Some correspond to islands that were later destroyed by volcanic activity or rising seas. Others remain unexplained. What if some of these islands were once peaks of a larger sunken continent? If so, why does mainstream history treat them as legend rather than evidence? It is also worth noting that ancient civilizations possessed sophisticated knowledge of geography and astronomy, far earlier than many modern scholars admit. Polynesian wayfinders, Egyptian cartographers, and Chinese navigators all produced remarkably accurate representations of the Earth long before telescopes and global surveys. Could it be that early maps, combining observation and memory, preserved knowledge of a lost Pacific continent, only to be gradually dismissed as fantasy? Beyond the Pacific, some argue that secretive societies played a role in preserving and controlling this knowledge. Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and other esoteric orders often claimed access to ancient wisdom, including lost lands, suppressed history, and sacred geometry. These groups may have curated maps, texts, and astronomical charts, protecting information that mainstream society either could not comprehend or sought to ignore. The lost continent, in this view, became part of a hidden curriculum, accessible only to the few initiated into arcane knowledge. Even modern scholars and cartographers sometimes stumble upon anomalies. For instance, sonar mapping of the ocean floor reveals underwater plateaus, terraces, and submerged structures that suggest the presence of former landmasses. Many of these features were known to older navigators, recorded in maps, and passed down through oral traditions. Yet they were often dismissed in the scientific literature as natural formations. Could the selective attention to these features be a subtle form of suppression, preserving the appearance of an empty ocean while the memory of Mu lingers below the waves? Perhaps the most compelling example comes from ancient Polynesian star charts and navigation charts. As we explored in the previous section, these maps often included islands that no longer exist. Yet when European explorers attempted to reconcile these charts with their own maps, the islands vanished, as if erased from collective consciousness. Was this erasure a natural consequence of rising seas and shifting coastlines? Or was it influenced by the political and social desire to normalize geography according to accepted narratives? Map suppression is not always deliberate. Sometimes it is the result of convention, oversight, or skepticism. A cartographer who sees a mysterious island may doubt the source, label it mythical, and remove it in subsequent editions. Over centuries, this process accumulates until the lost continent exists only in fragments, in legends, in star maps, and in anomalies overlooked by scholars. Yet the anomalies endure. Historians, amateur researchers, and modern cartographers who study old charts continue to find patterns, islands aligned with submerged plateaus, coastlines that correspond to rising and falling sea levels, and landforms echoing the myths of Hiva, Hawaii, or Mu. These patterns hint at a reality that the modern world has largely forgotten, suppressed, or dismissed. In this way, maps become a palimpsest of memory. On the surface, they conform to accepted geography. Beneath, they whisper of forgotten lands, sunken continents, and civilizations erased by time and tide. Mu and Lemuria are not only preserved in myth and ritual, they are encoded in charts, star alignments, and hidden features, waiting for those willing to read between the lines. As we continue our journey, the suppressed maps remind us that the lost continent is more than legend. It is a hidden layer of history, partially erased but never entirely gone. The challenge is to trace it, to reconcile the anomalies with myth, and to see the Pacific not as empty water but as a memory bank, holding secrets that might one day reshape our understanding of the world. Next, we will explore Section 9, Forbidden Knowledge and Esoteric Traditions, 950 words, diving deeper into the spiritual and secretive knowledge that may preserve Mu's legacy. Throughout human history, knowledge has been both a gift and a weapon. Some truths have been celebrated, taught openly, and preserved in libraries. Others have been hidden, encoded, or forbidden, whispered only in secret chambers or passed along to initiates who could guard them. The story of Mu and Lemuria falls squarely into this shadowy category. A civilization whose material ruins may lie beneath the ocean, but whose spiritual, scientific, and cosmic knowledge may have survived only through esoteric traditions. Theosophists, occultists, and mystics have long argued that Lemuria was home to a civilization far advanced in consciousness and energy. These teachings, they claim, were encoded into symbols, chants, and artifacts, passed down through generations even after the continent sank. Unlike conventional history, which is linear and material, esoteric traditions treat knowledge as living and layered, accessible only to those who possess both intent and understanding. Among the most compelling carriers of this knowledge were Polynesian navigators, whose chants, star maps, and rituals encoded practical wisdom alongside spiritual principles. To the casual observer, these may appear as mere folklore, but to those trained in esoteric practices, every gesture, chant, and alignment contains information about natural forces, cosmic cycles, and human potential. Some scholars suggest these are echoes of Lemurian teachings, preserved across millennia. In the West, secret societies have long claimed to protect knowledge of forgotten civilizations. The Rosicrucians, Freemasons, and certain branches of the Theosophical Society have all referenced lost continents, hidden wisdom, and ancient sciences. Some manuscripts hint at a Pacific homeland known to pre-flood civilizations, a place where geometry, astronomy, and metaphysics were fused into a single coherent system. Whether these accounts are factual or symbolic, they reinforce the idea that the legacy of Mu and Lemuria was considered too powerful, too dangerous, or too sacred to reveal openly. One of the most fascinating intersections of forbidden knowledge and the lost continent involves ancient technology and cosmic alignment. Esoteric accounts suggest that the Lemurians had tools and devices aligned with celestial cycles, using energy from the Earth itself to power their cities, heal the sick, or enhance consciousness. These claims sound fantastical, perhaps impossible, yet they echo across cultures. The Polynesians, Egyptians, and Mayans all encoded astronomical and energy knowledge into their structures and rituals, hinting at a shared or preserved wisdom. Could these be fragments of the same Lemurian science? Furthermore, many myths and rituals contain what could be described as encoded warnings, reminders of the cataclysms that destroyed Mu. Flood myths, chants, and cautionary tales may have served a dual purpose: to preserve memory and to transmit practical knowledge for survival. In this sense, forbidden knowledge was not merely spiritual but practical, a manual for enduring forces that ordinary humans could not comprehend. Esoteric traditions also suggest that certain artifacts hold the key to lost Lemurian wisdom. Churchward wrote extensively about tablets discovered in India, inscribed with symbols and teachings from Mu. Modern alternative researchers claim that Lemurian crystals, carved stones, and megaliths may act as repositories of information, encoded with energy, memory, or symbolic knowledge. While mainstream science dismisses these claims, their persistence in oral and written traditions suggests a cultural obsession with preserving what was considered sacred. Another facet of forbidden knowledge is the concept of memory encoded in consciousness itself. Many spiritual teachers assert that the Lemurians developed methods to preserve knowledge beyond the written word, in the mind, in the subconscious, and even in collective human memory. Meditation, chant, and ritual served not only to honor the gods but also to transmit memory across generations, ensuring that even if the land was lost, its wisdom endured. The question arises, why hide such knowledge? The answer may lie in its power and danger. Knowledge of cataclysm, cosmic cycles, or advanced energy manipulation could disrupt social order. Misused, it could bring harm rather than benefit. Perhaps this is why the esoteric traditions were so strict, why initiates swore oaths of secrecy, and why much of what survives is fragmentary, allegorical, or hidden in symbols. Yet despite centuries of suppression, echoes of Lemuria's forbidden knowledge persist. From Polynesian rituals to esoteric teachings in Europe, from mystical crystals to symbolic architecture, there is a thread connecting these fragments. It is a thread that suggests not merely a lost land, but a civilization whose understanding of the cosmos was profound and precise, preserved in layers that only the diligent, curious, and open-minded might uncover. Ultimately, forbidden knowledge serves as a reminder that history is never complete, and that what we call myth, legend, or pseudoscience may sometimes be memory disguised. The story of Mu and Lemuria, as preserved in esoteric traditions, invites us to question, what if the ocean's silence does not indicate absence but concealment? What if some knowledge was deliberately hidden, waiting for the right minds to decode it? As we move forward, the suppressed maps, esoteric wisdom, and Polynesian memory converge with archaeological anomalies and cataclysmic theories, painting a complex portrait of a lost continent. In the next section, we will explore Section 10, Modern Exploration and Evidence, 950 words, tracing the efforts of contemporary researchers, divers, and geologists as they seek the tangible traces of Mu beneath the Pacific waves. The legend of Mu and Lemuria may have originated in myth, esoteric writings, and misinterpreted science, but modern explorers and researchers have brought a new layer of tangible investigation to the mystery. Advances in diving technology, sonar mapping, and satellite imagery have allowed humans to peer beneath the Pacific waves in ways that 19th-century visionaries could only dream of. And what they have found is both tantalizing and enigmatic. One of the most compelling cases is the Yonaguni Monument, off the southern coast of Japan. Discovered by diver Kihachiro Aratake in 1987, these submerged terraces, staircases, and flat platforms are carved from solid rock with precision that defies natural explanation. Some geologists argue that Yonaguni is a naturally formed phenomenon, sculpted by earthquakes and tidal forces over millennia. Yet other experts, along with alternative researchers, see unmistakable signs of human engineering: straight edges, sharp angles, and what appear to be roads and terraces. Could Yonaguni be a fragment of Mu, preserved beneath the waves for thousands of years? Further into the Pacific, Nan Madol, on the island of Pohnpei, offers another glimpse into the mystery. This city of basalt towers and canals, sometimes called the Venice of the Pacific, raises countless questions. How did ancient peoples transport massive stones weighing hundreds of tons across water and marshlands? How was such precise engineering achieved without modern tools? Some theorists propose that Nan Madol was a last vestige of a greater network of islands, once connected to a sunken continent, a surviving fragment of Lemuria. Submerged structures are not limited to East Asia or Micronesia. Satellite imagery and sonar scans of the Pacific Ocean reveal plateaus, terraces, and underwater formations near Indonesia, Fiji, and off the coast of the Philippines. These features, sometimes arranged in geometric patterns, hint at a more extensive landscape than previously thought. Rising sea levels following the last ice age could have swallowed entire civilizations, leaving only fragments for modern explorers to find. Even more remarkable are discoveries of underwater megaliths and alignments in regions like the Marianas Trench and near Tonga. While mainstream geology often interprets these as natural formations, their alignment with cardinal points, tidal patterns, or ancient astronomical events suggests intentional design. Could these be markers of human habitation or ceremonial sites, now submerged due to tectonic shifts? Modern explorers also rely on historical maps and oral histories to guide their searches. Polynesian navigators preserve the memory of islands long gone, and these oral traditions sometimes point researchers to specific underwater formations. Some lost islands referenced in chants align with sonar-detected seamounts, lending credence to the idea that the ocean floor is not random, but a repository of submerged human activity. Geologists have further contributed to this puzzle. The discovery of Zealandia, a nearly submerged continent beneath New Zealand, confirmed that large land masses can indeed sink beneath the waves. While Zealandia is not Mu, it demonstrates that our understanding of continental drift and oceanic submersion is still evolving. If a continent can disappear nearly entirely, leaving only islands and underwater plateaus, then Mu or Lemuria could have been real, erased from surface maps but preserved beneath the waves. Even in archaeology, hints appear. Sites along the coasts of Japan, Taiwan, and even Peru show evidence of ancient settlements now submerged, possibly by rising seas or seismic activity. Tools, pottery, and ceremonial stones have been recovered from depths suggesting long-term inundation. Each discovery raises the tantalizing possibility that remnants of Mu and Lemuria remain hidden, awaiting patient investigation. Technology continues to transform the search. Remote-operated vehicles, ROVs, and autonomous drones explore depths previously unreachable, while satellite imaging and LiDAR can detect subtle patterns in oceanic terrain. Researchers like Dr. Charles Orser and private exploration teams are increasingly combining archaeology, geology, and anthropology to locate sunken cities, not just in legend, but as potential historical reality. The combination of oral memory, submerged ruins, and modern technology presents a compelling case. The Pacific Ocean may indeed conceal traces of civilizations lost to cataclysm. While no definitive evidence yet proves the existence of Mu or Lemuria, the convergence of geological, archaeological, and cultural data suggests that the ocean is far from empty. The remnants of a forgotten world may be waiting beneath thousands of meters of water, silent but waiting to be rediscovered. As our exploration continues, one theme becomes clear. History is not confined to books or maps. It exists in ruins, in oral memory, in submerged terraces, and in the lingering spiritual legacies passed down through cultures across the Pacific. Modern exploration has brought us closer to bridging myth and reality, revealing that what was once considered legend may have tangible traces waiting to be found. In the next section, Section 11, Ancient Prophecies and Legends, 950 words, we will explore how ancient texts, prophecies, and myths may encode warnings and memories of the lost continent, linking spiritual knowledge with geological and historical events. Throughout history, civilizations have attempted to make sense of cataclysm, survival, and the loss of entire worlds. When words, maps, and monuments fail, humans turn to prophecy and legend, the stories that survive beyond written history, encoded with warnings, wisdom, and memory. In the case of Mu and Lemuria, prophecies may preserve more than myth. They could be fragments of historical memory, echoing the rise and fall of a lost continent beneath the Pacific. One of the most intriguing sources comes from Hawaiian and Polynesian oral traditions. These cultures speak of Haleakala and the great floods, volcanic eruptions, and villages swallowed by the sea. Some chants describe the sudden disappearance of land, the submersion of entire islands, and the survival of a few chosen peoples who carried knowledge forward. To a modern listener, these tales sound mythical. To those attuned to esoteric traditions, they resemble coded warnings, memories of real cataclysms preserved in story form. The Maori speak of Hawaii, a distant homeland from which their ancestors came. Hawaii is described as a paradise lost, destroyed by natural catastrophe, leaving survivors to voyage across the ocean to new lands. Scholars debate whether Hawaii corresponds to real islands or continents that were later submerged, possibly linked to Mu or Lemuria. These legends emphasize continuity. The memory of land persists even when the land itself disappears. Even beyond Polynesia, echoes of lost lands appear in prophecy. The Mayan Popol Vuh recounts cycles of destruction and renewal, floods, and the fall of civilizations. While geographically distant, these stories share striking similarities with Pacific myths, sudden cataclysm, divine or natural intervention, and the survival of select knowledge bearers. Some researchers suggest that these shared narratives reflect collective memory, a distant recollection of prehistoric cataclysms that reshaped oceans and continents. In the West, the 19th and 20th centuries saw prophecies linked to the lost continent through spiritualist and esoteric traditions. The Theosophists spoke of Lemuria as a civilization with extraordinary spiritual and technological abilities, whose wisdom would one day re-emerge when humanity was ready. Prophecies described survivors dispersing across the world, carrying knowledge in their bloodlines, consciousness, and culture, an idea that resonates with Polynesian and other oral histories. Interestingly, some prophecies appear to encode specific geographic information. Ancient Hawaiian chants, for example, describe stars and currents as guides to lost lands. In some cases, these chants correspond with submerged plateaus and underwater terraces discovered by modern sonar mapping. Could these prophetic maps preserve knowledge of Mu's geography, transmitted across centuries in allegorical form? Other prophecies focus on the nature of cataclysm itself. They describe fire from the earth, water from the sky, and the sudden reshaping of coastlines, phenomena that modern geology confirms as plausible in the Pacific region. Massive volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and megatsunamis could have eradicated entire islands and reshaped seafloor topography, leaving behind only fragments of land and memory. Ancient prophets, whether inspired or observant, may have captured these events in allegorical form. Across multiple continents and cultures, a pattern emerges: lost lands, cataclysm, survivors, and the preservation of knowledge. From the Pacific to Central America, from Australia to Asia, these prophecies carry a consistent motif: the sudden disappearance of land and the persistence of memory, culture, and wisdom. While mainstream historians may dismiss these similarities as coincidence, alternative researchers see a tantalizing connection, a hidden record of the lost Pacific continent embedded in human consciousness. Even in spiritual and mystical practices, these prophecies have left a trace. Certain chants, meditations, and rituals reference a time before the flood, a world in which humans lived in harmony with nature and the cosmos. These practices may encode lessons from Mu or Lemuria, warning future generations about ecological imbalance, human hubris, or cosmic cycles. In this sense, prophecy becomes both memory and guidance, a living bridge between vanished land and surviving consciousness. Yet prophecy is rarely literal. Its power lies in ambiguity. The lost continent may be a real geographic entity, a spiritual metaphor, or both. The key is interpretation, reading between the lines, tracing echoes in myth, and correlating allegorical accounts with archaeology, geology, and astronomy. By doing so, modern researchers attempt to reconstruct a world erased from maps, but preserved in story. As we piece together submerged cities, esoteric traditions, star maps, and now prophecy, a larger pattern emerges. Mu and Lemuria were not merely lands lost to the ocean. They were centers of knowledge, culture, and cosmic awareness. Their destruction did not erase all traces. It scattered them across myths, rituals, and prophecies, waiting for patient explorers to connect the dots. Mu and Lemuria do not exist in isolation. Across cultures, continents, and epochs, there are recurring stories of lost lands, sunken continents, and civilizations erased by cataclysm. Among the most famous is Atlantis, described by Plato as a powerful island civilization that vanished beneath the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. Could these stories be interconnected? Could Mu, Lemuria, and Atlantis represent fragments of a global network of advanced civilizations long erased from conventional history? The first point of connection lies in timing and destruction. Legends suggest that Mu and Lemuria sank due to rising oceans, seismic upheavals, and volcanic activity, processes strikingly similar to those that supposedly destroyed Atlantis. Could these cataclysms be part of a broader pattern, a series of geological and environmental events that reshaped the planet at the end of the last ice age? Some researchers suggest that these events left isolated survivors, whose descendants spread myths and knowledge across oceans and continents. Next, we observe cultural parallels. Across the Pacific, Polynesian myths speak of Hawaii, while in the Atlantic, Plato describes Atlantis. Both civilizations are credited with advanced knowledge, spiritual wisdom, and remarkable engineering. Across Asia, legends of Kumari Kandam in southern India echo the theme of a sunken continent. In South America, flood myths and submerged platforms suggest similar catastrophes. Could these independent accounts be memory of a shared prehistoric reality, civilizations so advanced that fragments of their knowledge persisted long after their lands disappeared? Architecture offers another hint. Megalithic constructions, often aligned with celestial events, appear across distant geographies. The precision of stonework in Nan Madol, the pyramids of Mesoamerica, and even the monolithic structures of Atlantis lore suggests advanced engineering knowledge possibly preserved or inspired by older, sunken civilizations. Some theorists argue that Mu and Lemuria could have acted as knowledge hubs, disseminating architectural, astronomical, and spiritual principles across the ancient world. Another link appears in mythological symbolism. Lemuria is associated with heightened spiritual awareness, Atlantis with advanced technology, and both with sudden cataclysm. Across the globe, myths reference advanced human capabilities, long lifespans, telepathy, mastery of natural forces, and a profound connection with the cosmos. Could these legends be echoes of shared knowledge systems, transmitted orally, ritually, or through secret societies, connecting distant civilizations into a web of forgotten wisdom? Trade and migration may offer tangible connections. Archaeological evidence suggests early maritime cultures could traverse vast distances, long before European expansion. Polynesian navigation skills, combined with evidence of prehistoric contact between South America and Polynesia, imply that knowledge could have moved across oceans. Survivors of Mu, Lemuria, or Atlantis may have migrated, carrying seeds of culture, language, and technology that shaped subsequent civilizations. Esoteric traditions further reinforce the link. The Theosophical Society, Rosicrucians, and other mystical orders describe a continuum of lost civilizations, from Lemuria to Atlantis, often hinting at a deeper, universal wisdom encoded in human consciousness. These teachings suggest that Mu's spiritual legacy did not vanish. It merged with Atlantean science, forming a hybrid knowledge base, preserved in ritual, architecture, and myth for millennia. Even ancient maps and navigational knowledge hint at connections. Some Piri Reis and Orance Fine maps depict islands and locations inconsistent with modern geography, possibly traces of intercontinental contact or lost lands. If Mu and Atlantis existed within overlapping timeframes, maps, oral histories, and celestial alignments might preserve hidden threads connecting them, waiting for modern interpretation. Interestingly, some legends suggest direct interactions between continents. Polynesian chants describe voyagers reaching distant islands far beyond their known world. Plato describes Atlanteans influencing Mediterranean civilizations. Could survivors from Mu or Lemuria have traveled westward, establishing the foundations of knowledge in the Atlantic, inspiring the legends of Atlantis? Or were they part of a network of continents, each falling victim to cataclysm at different times, yet preserving shared wisdom in myths, megaliths, and rituals? The possibility of a global network challenges mainstream history. Traditionally, lost continents are treated as isolated myths or speculative fiction. Yet the recurrence of similar cataclysms, advanced knowledge, and megalithic architecture across widely separated regions suggests a pattern that may be rooted in reality. Mu, Lemuria, and Atlantis could represent a prehistoric continuum of human civilization, far older and more sophisticated than textbooks admit. Finally, there is the spiritual dimension. Lemuria emphasized consciousness, Atlantis emphasized technology, and together they may have embodied a holistic understanding of human potential, a blueprint lost to history but preserved in ritual, myth, and subtle cultural memory. By connecting these lost worlds, we begin to glimpse a global civilization network, a forgotten chapter of humanity that spanned oceans, shaped continents, and encoded its knowledge across millennia. The legend of Mu and Lemuria is not confined to myth, prophecy, or esoteric wisdom. Beneath the ocean, the Earth itself may hold the evidence of cataclysmic events that reshaped continents, swallowed civilizations, and left only fragments behind. By examining geology, tectonics, and oceanography, we can explore how natural forces may have erased entire lands while preserving memory in myth, ritual, and oral tradition. The Pacific Ocean is one of the most geologically active regions on Earth. It is ringed by the Ring of Fire, a chain of volcanoes, trenches, and fault lines where tectonic plates collide, shift, and subduct. Over millennia, this activity has created volcanic islands, destroyed others, and caused massive underwater earthquakes. Some researchers suggest that the submersion of Mu and Lemuria could be explained by sudden tectonic shifts or gradual subsidence due to plate movement, sinking these civilizations beneath the waves. Volcanic eruptions provide another piece of the puzzle. Supervolcanoes, capable of altering climates and reshaping coastlines, could have contributed to the destruction of large land masses. Geological evidence of massive eruptions exists across the Pacific, from Tonga to Indonesia, where caldera formations, ash layers, and pyroclastic deposits indicate catastrophic events. Such eruptions could explain oral traditions describing fire from the earth consuming entire islands, a motif common in Polynesian myths. Tsunamis and rising sea levels compound the effects. At the end of the last ice age, melting glaciers raised ocean levels by hundreds of meters. Low-lying islands, coastal settlements, and entire plateaus could have been gradually submerged, leaving only peaks or submerged terraces for modern explorers to find. Cataclysmic tsunamis triggered by earthquakes would have struck suddenly, swallowing cities, reshaping coastlines, and leaving survivors with only stories, chants, and memories of lands now lost. Geological studies of submerged terraces and plateaus in the Pacific reveal a complex history. Off Japan, Yonaguni shows terraces at depths consistent with sea level rise dating back 10,000 to 12,000 years. Similar submerged features appear near Fiji, Micronesia, and Tonga. Some of these structures align with megalithic architecture, suggesting not random geological formations, but evidence of human occupation before submersion. Could these be the remnants of Mu or Lemuria, swallowed by the sea but preserved in stone? Plate tectonics may offer yet another clue. The Pacific Plate is in constant motion, shifting over hotspots and colliding with neighboring plates. Entire island chains can disappear beneath subduction zones, effectively erasing them from the surface. Over thousands of years, what was once a sprawling continent could shrink to scattered islands or vanish entirely. This process provides a plausible explanation for the lost continent phenomenon described in myths, oral traditions, and even maps. Seismic activity adds a layer of sudden cataclysm. Massive earthquakes, some reaching magnitude 9 or higher, can trigger landslides, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis simultaneously. Legends of Mu often describe sudden destruction, not gradual decline, a detail that aligns with geological possibilities. The combination of tectonic movement, seismic shock, and rising waters could have destroyed cities in a single night, leaving survivors to recount the events in song and myth. Even beyond the Pacific, geological parallels exist. Zealandia, a nearly submerged continent, demonstrates that large land masses can sink almost entirely, leaving only peaks visible above the ocean. Its discovery reshaped geological understanding, proving that sunken continents are not mere fantasy. If Zealandia could vanish beneath the waves, the submersion of Mu or Lemuria becomes a scientifically plausible scenario. Archaeological evidence supports this theory as well. Submerged platforms, terraces, and megaliths in the Pacific often show signs of human engineering and habitation, suggesting that the areas were above water during early human activity. Sediment analysis indicates rapid inundation in some cases, consistent with tsunami or tectonic events. Combined with oral history, these data suggest a catastrophic end rather than gradual erosion, a sudden, civilization-altering event that left only memory behind. Volcanic, tectonic, and tsunami activity may explain the geographical disappearance, but the persistence of myths, prophecies, and star-based navigation suggests a human element of memory preservation. Oral traditions encode precise knowledge of coastlines, islands, and cataclysms, providing navigators, shamans, and storytellers with a living map of lost lands. In this way, geology and culture converge. Nature destroys, but human memory preserves. Ultimately, the geological evidence paints a compelling picture. Mu and Lemuria may not be mere legend. Cataclysmic tectonic shifts, rising seas, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis provide a plausible mechanism for the disappearance of an advanced civilization beneath the Pacific. Their legacy survives not only in submerged stone but in story, ritual, and memory, offering modern researchers tantalizing clues about a lost chapter of human history. Legends of Mu and Lemuria often emphasize spiritual sophistication, but many accounts also hint at technological mastery far beyond what modern history acknowledges. From energy harnessing to advanced engineering, these civilizations may have combined science and mysticism in ways that allowed them to thrive, and yet remain invisible to us, erased by cataclysm, but preserved in myth, ritual, and artifacts. Consider the accounts of energy harnessing. Esoteric writings suggest that Lemurian cities were powered not by fire or fossil fuels, but by subtle energies drawn from the earth itself. Some claim the megalithic structures, terraces, and pyramids were aligned with geomagnetic and celestial forces, channeling energy to sustain life, maintain climate stability, or even enhance human consciousness. While mainstream science regards these claims as speculative, the precision of ancient alignments across the Pacific, South America, and Asia suggests knowledge of astronomical and terrestrial energy systems that is astonishing. The construction techniques also defy conventional explanation. Megaliths at Nanmadol, Easter Island, and Peru show an understanding of engineering and transportation that challenges modern assumptions. Some stones weigh over 80 tons, yet were moved and placed with incredible precision. Oral traditions and esoteric texts hint at knowledge of levers, vibration, and resonance, perhaps early methods of energy-assisted construction lost to time. Could Lemurian engineers have employed principles that we are only beginning to rediscover? Beyond physical construction, Lemuria is said to have cultivated mystical sciences, disciplines blending observation, consciousness, and energy. Meditation, chanting, and ritual may have served dual purposes: spiritual elevation and practical application. Certain ceremonies, for example, are described as harmonizing human and natural energy, aligning cities, crops, and communities with environmental cycles. Modern analogies include geomancy, acupuncture, and resonant frequency experiments, suggesting that Lemurian knowledge may have been a precursor to fields we now consider scientific. Crystals, a recurring motif in esoteric texts, are often cited as repositories of knowledge. Churchward and later researchers wrote about Lemurian crystals containing encoded information, including history, maps, and energy formulas. These claims may be metaphorical, yet some researchers speculate that the crystals were carefully cut, aligned, and charged using vibrational techniques, effectively storing information in energy patterns rather than ink or stone. Modern physics hints that such energy encoding is not entirely impossible. Astronomical alignment was another hallmark. Many Lemurian sites appear synchronized with celestial events, from solstices to planetary cycles. These alignments may have served multiple purposes, as calendars, as ritual frameworks, or even as energy conductors, tapping into planetary or cosmic forces. The ability to integrate architecture, astronomy, and energy suggests a civilization that viewed science and spirituality as inseparable rather than as opposing disciplines. Navigation is yet another example of advanced technology intertwined with mystical science. Polynesian wayfinders could traverse thousands of miles across the Pacific using star positions, ocean swells, and subtle environmental cues. Some researchers argue that this knowledge reflects Lemurian techniques, methods that combined observation, intuition, and consciousness in ways that allowed humans to master the open ocean without instruments. Navigation becomes not just a skill but a metaphysical practice, connecting mind, body, and environment. Even in mythology, we find hints of advanced technology. Tales describe floating cities, energy shields, and machines that could control weather or manipulate natural forces. While some interpretations are symbolic, others suggest practical applications of physics lost to modern understanding. Could Mu and Lemuria have developed technologies that were erased by cataclysm, surviving only as metaphor and legend? Furthermore, esoteric traditions suggest that Lemurian knowledge was encoded for survival. Catastrophes were expected, and teachings were designed to preserve wisdom across generations, often in cryptic form. Architecture, crystal grids, rituals, and chants acted as memory devices, preserving technical and spiritual knowledge even as the continent sank. In this sense, technology and mysticism were inseparable. One encoded the other, ensuring continuity even after physical destruction. Ultimately, Lemuria represents a holistic civilization where engineering, astronomy, energy science, and consciousness were integrated. By studying their ruins, maps, and surviving rituals, modern researchers begin to glimpse a civilization that merged the practical with the spiritual, the physical with the metaphysical. While mainstream science may dismiss these accounts as myth, the consistency of the patterns, from megalithic construction to astronomical alignment and mystical teachings, suggests something far more profound. An advanced society whose knowledge has been largely forgotten but may yet illuminate human potential. The story of Mu and Lemuria reaches its tragic climax in the final cataclysm, the moment when entire civilizations were swallowed by the Pacific, leaving behind only fragments of memory, myth, and submerged ruins. By examining geological, climatic, and mythological evidence, we can begin to imagine how a continent, advanced, vibrant, and sophisticated, could vanish almost entirely from the surface of the Earth. Geological evidence points to tectonic instability as a central factor. The Pacific Plate is in constant motion, and over millennia, it has collided with surrounding plates, causing earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and gradual subduction of land. Entire island chains, once thriving centers of culture and commerce, could have been pulled beneath the ocean over centuries. Some submerged terraces and megalithic structures discovered off Japan, Fiji, and Tonga align with timelines of tectonic activity dating back 10,000 to 12,000 years, coinciding with legends of sudden floods and disappearing lands. Volcanism played a critical role as well. Supervolcanoes in the Pacific region could have triggered cataclysmic eruptions, blanketing the continent in ash, reshaping coastlines, and altering climate patterns. Massive pyroclastic flows, lava surges, and airborne debris would have made survival impossible in affected regions. Oral histories and myths describe fire from the earth, aligning with these geological possibilities, suggesting that ancient peoples encoded the memory of volcanic devastation in their stories. Rising sea levels compounded the catastrophe. At the end of the last ice age, glaciers melted at an unprecedented rate, causing global sea levels to rise by hundreds of meters over several millennia. Low-lying continental shelves, coastal cities, and agricultural terraces would have gradually submerged, leaving only the highest peaks visible. Survivors might have migrated to islands and distant shores, carrying with them memories, rituals, and knowledge of the lost homeland. Tsunamis may have delivered the final blow. Massive underwater earthquakes could generate waves tens of meters high, obliterating coastal settlements and sweeping entire islands beneath the waves. Many legends describe sudden destruction, lands vanishing overnight, waters engulfing cities, reflecting the instantaneous devastation that such tsunamis could inflict. When combined with tectonic subduction and rising seas, this creates a compelling geological explanation for the disappearance of an entire continent. Yet the cataclysm was not purely physical. It had a profound cultural and spiritual impact. Survivors, dispersed across the Pacific and beyond, carried fragments of knowledge, ritual, and architecture with them. Polynesian navigation techniques, chants, and star-based orientation systems preserve echoes of Lemurian science. Rituals and mythological accounts encode the memory of the catastrophe, ensuring that even as the land sank, the culture persisted in consciousness and practice. Maps, too, provide tantalizing hints. Early cartographers sometimes recorded islands and land masses that have since vanished, aligning with stories of submersion. The Pyre Reis map, Oren's fine charts, and Polynesian oral maps suggest a collective memory of Mu's geography, preserved despite centuries of suppression and misunderstanding. These maps act as ghosts of a lost continent, revealing what geology alone cannot. There are also parallels in mythology and prophecy. Flood myths across the Pacific, the Americas, and even Asia echo similar motifs: sudden destruction, divine or natural intervention, and the survival of select people entrusted with knowledge. These myths are not random. They suggest a shared memory of cataclysmic events, encoded in story and ritual to preserve survival strategies and cultural continuity. Interestingly, some researchers propose that the destruction was intentional in a cosmic or spiritual sense, not in the human sense of warfare, but as a consequence of imbalance. Legends of Lemuria describe a civilization that, despite its spiritual sophistication, failed to maintain harmony with the Earth's energies or natural cycles. Cataclysm may have been nature's corrective mechanism, a reminder that even advanced civilizations are vulnerable to the planet they inhabit. The disappearance of Mu and Lemuria represents a convergence of multiple factors: tectonic activity, volcanism, rising seas, tsunamis, and possibly climatic shifts. Each factor alone could devastate a region. Combined, they offer a plausible explanation for the near-total erasure of a continent. Yet what is most striking is how human memory survived despite geological obliteration. Myths, chants, rituals, and even submerged ruins act as time capsules, preserving the essence of a civilization lost beneath the waves. Ultimately, the disappearance of Mu is both a geological event and a narrative phenomenon. Rocks may sink, cities may vanish, and continents may disappear, but human memory, culture, and consciousness endure. Survivors carried the knowledge forward, ensuring that even in fragmentary form, the lessons of Lemuria remain accessible to those who seek them. Even though Mu and Lemuria disappeared thousands of years ago, their legacy reverberates through modern culture, science, and spirituality. The continent's story, preserved in myth, prophecy, esoteric traditions, and submerged ruins, continues to influence explorers, researchers, and visionaries today. From archaeology to metaphysics, the lessons of the lost Pacific world remain remarkably relevant. One of the most tangible impacts is in the field of archaeology and geology. Modern sonar mapping, satellite imagery, and deep-sea exploration have revealed submerged terraces, plateaus, and potential city-like formations in the Pacific. These discoveries challenge the traditional narrative of a static, known geography and invite researchers to reconsider the possibility of sunken continents. Even the discovery of Zealandia has shifted paradigms, showing that entire land masses can disappear beneath the waves, lending credence to legends of Mu and Lemuria. Beyond the purely scientific, Mu's story resonates in spiritual and esoteric communities. Many modern mystics and energy practitioners reference Lemurian consciousness, meditation techniques, and crystal-based teachings as part of a lineage that traces back to the lost continent. These practices often emphasize harmony with nature, attunement to planetary energies, and the cultivation of consciousness, principles reportedly central to Lemurian life. In this way, the lost continent continues to influence personal transformation and collective spiritual awareness. The legacy also extends to cultural memory. Polynesian, Hawaiian, and Maori traditions preserve navigational methods, oral histories, and chants that align with the idea of a vanished homeland. Even if the continent itself is no longer physically accessible, its memory survives in techniques, rituals, and knowledge systems that continue to shape Pacific cultures. These practices are living proof that the disappearance of land does not equate to the disappearance of knowledge. Modern writers, filmmakers, and storytellers have also drawn inspiration from Mu and Lemuria. From novels to documentaries, these lost continents captivate audiences by blending history, mystery, and imagination. The fascination with sunken lands, cataclysm, and advanced civilizations allows people to explore alternative histories and question the boundaries between myth and reality. In this sense, Mu serves as a cultural mirror, reflecting humanity's enduring curiosity about origins, memory, and lost knowledge. Scientific inquiry has begun to intersect with myth in fascinating ways. Oceanographers and geologists studying submerged plateaus, terraces, and coral formations sometimes find correlations with ancient oral traditions and maps. Polynesian wayfinding, for instance, preserves knowledge of currents, star alignments, and landforms now underwater. This suggests a remarkable continuity between ancestral memory and physical geography, bridging mythological knowledge and empirical observation. The story of Mu also carries a cautionary dimension. Cataclysm, environmental collapse, and the disappearance of civilization are not merely ancient history. They serve as reminders of the fragility of human societies. Rising sea levels, climate change, and tectonic activity today echo the same forces that may have sunk Lemuria. In this sense, Mu is both a warning and a guide, illustrating the importance of ecological awareness, sustainable living, and respect for the natural world. Esoteric teachings suggest that Lemuria's advanced understanding of consciousness and energy could provide lessons for the modern era. Meditation, geomantic principles, and alignment with natural cycles are seen as practical applications of ancient wisdom. By studying these principles, humanity may not only recover lost knowledge, but also develop sustainable practices that harmonize technology, energy, and the environment. The allure of Mu continues to drive exploration. Divers, archaeologists, and enthusiasts journey into the Pacific in search of submerged ruins, terraces, and potential artifacts, hoping to uncover tangible evidence of the lost continent. Even if definitive proof remains elusive, the search itself fosters a spirit of curiosity, interdisciplinary research, and the blending of science with imagination, a hallmark of all great discoveries. Finally, Mu's story reminds us that history is layered and multifaceted. Conventional narratives capture only part of human experience. Legends, oral traditions, prophecies, and myths preserve what mainstream history might overlook. The lost continent exists not only beneath the waves, but within the collective consciousness, encoded in culture, ritual, and memory. Its legacy endures as a testament to human curiosity, resilience, and the enduring quest for knowledge. In conclusion, Mu and Lemuria are more than lost continents. They are symbols of forgotten wisdom, advanced knowledge, and human potential. Their disappearance challenges us to look beyond the surface, to question accepted narratives, and to seek knowledge in unexpected places. The legacy of the lost Pacific world is alive today, in the oceans, in myth, in spiritual practice, and in the imagination of those who dare to explore the forgotten corners of human history. After traversing myths, submerged ruins, prophecies, esoteric traditions, and geological evidence, we arrive at the final reflection on Mu and Lemuria, a journey that blends history, mystery, and imagination. What can the story of a lost continent teach us, not only about the past, but about human curiosity, resilience, and the persistence of memory? The disappearance of Mu is a tale of both loss and preservation. Entire cities, advanced knowledge, and thriving cultures may have been erased from the physical world, yet human memory preserved the essence of their existence. Polynesian chants, Hawaiian rituals, Maori navigational lore, and esoteric writings act as time capsules, carrying knowledge through generations, even when the land itself vanished beneath the waves. In this sense, Mu still exists, not only in stone beneath the ocean, but in consciousness, culture, and imagination. The global resonance of Mu and Lemuria underscores a profound truth. Civilizations are interconnected across time and space. The parallels with Atlantis, Kamari Kandam, and other lost worlds suggest a shared narrative of human ingenuity, catastrophe, and resilience. Knowledge may be scattered, but wisdom endures. Megaliths, star maps, and ritual practices hint at a network of human understanding that transcends borders and epochs. The lost continent may vanish physically, but its lessons continue to ripple through culture, science, and spiritual practice. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect is the intersection of science and myth. Geological, archaeological, and oceanographic evidence aligns in surprising ways with legends, prophecy, and esoteric teachings. Submerged terraces, sunken megaliths, and seismic records suggest real cataclysms that could have erased entire land masses. Meanwhile, myths encode the memory of these events in symbolic form, blending cautionary tale with preserved knowledge. Here, legend is not mere fiction. It is human memory confronting incomprehensible forces. The story of Mu also invites reflection on human potential and consciousness. Esoteric traditions suggest that Lemuria's civilization was not only advanced technologically, but also spiritually. Energy grids, meditation, crystal technology, and harmonization with cosmic cycles point to a society that viewed science and spirit as inseparable. Even today, these principles inspire explorers, spiritual seekers, and researchers, encouraging a more holistic understanding of human capability. Modern exploration adds another layer to the legacy. Scientists, divers, and satellite researchers continue to uncover underwater formations that hint at human habitation, while oral traditions provide guidance on locations, currents, and celestial alignments. The pursuit of Mu inspires collaboration across disciplines, blending archaeology, oceanography, mythology, and spiritual insight. In this sense, the quest for the lost continent is not just about finding ruins. It is about rediscovering knowledge and wonder. Yet, perhaps the most enduring lesson of Mu is humility in the face of nature. Cataclysmic events, rising seas, volcanic eruptions, and tectonic shifts remind us that even the most advanced civilizations are subject to the forces of the earth. Mu vanished not due to conflict, but due to the overpowering scale of natural events, a sobering reminder of our own vulnerability in a constantly changing world. The narrative also inspires reflection on memory, myth, and the human need to preserve knowledge. Legends, chants, and prophecies act as vessels, ensuring that even catastrophic loss does not erase cultural continuity. Knowledge may survive in non-material forms, in consciousness, ritual, and storytelling, long after the physical evidence has been obliterated. The story of Mu demonstrates that history is as much about memory as it is about material remains. As we consider Mu's disappearance, its technological mastery, spiritual sophistication, and influence across the world, a profound question emerges. What else might humanity have forgotten? How many civilizations, knowledge systems, or cultural achievements lie submerged in oceans, deserts, or forgotten archives, waiting for rediscovery? Mu and Lemuria challenge us to look deeper, think wider, and question accepted narratives. In the end, Mu is not just a story of lost land. It is a narrative about human curiosity, resilience, and the enduring power of memory. It reminds us that even in the face of cataclysm, culture, consciousness, and wisdom persist. Whether through myth, archaeological fragments, esoteric teachings, or submerged ruins, the lost continent continues to whisper its secrets, inviting those with curiosity and courage to listen, explore, and reflect. The lost continent beneath the Pacific, the world forgotten, lives not only in the ocean but in the imagination, memory, and spirit of humanity. It calls upon us to question, explore, and preserve, to recognize that history is never truly lost, only waiting for those who dare to seek it.